sales is something that a lot of people have difficulty with, and they have difficulty in themselves, seeing themselves as a salesperson or owning the fact that they sell something. And there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of like, resistance to it. But as an entrepreneur, you absolutely need to feel comfortable with it, and you need to find your own way that feels good to you. What would you say to someone who's sort of battling with this internal conflict of like, oh, well, so-and-so does it this way, but that feels icky to me, and I've never been able to find a way that feels good to me, or, I'm not a salesperson, I don't want to do it. Like, what would you say to someone with that sort of mentality?
To answer your question directly, if you don't feel aligned with the way that other people or the way that you kind of see the prevailing thoughts around how to sell, you really need to find a way that is aligned with how you want to sell. Because typically we don't do the things that we don't want to do. And you'll notice, if I can use exercising as like an example, you'll have people who say, oh my gosh, I hate exercise, until they find an exercise that they love, like Zumba, right? Or doing yoga or Pilates or whatever it is. And they're like, oh my gosh, I love doing this. And so it's about, there isn't only one way to sell. I obviously think the way that I think about sales is the best way, but I'm biased. So, I really would encourage any entrepreneur that feels like doing that business development is uncomfortable to really sit down and ask yourself, okay, what is it about business development or having those conversations that I feel uncomfortable about? And then find ways that are more aligned with your personality and how it is that you want to sell. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the best salesperson, especially in the beginning parts of the business, out of everyone. And sales and sales skills is something you're going to need just forever, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's for your business or you're trying to convince your partner that you should buy your vacation home in San Diego and not, somewhere in Australia, right? So if you know how to sell and have really, if I can boil down sales, it's you're simply having conversations with people. Now, how you choose to have those conversations, that's as unique as, the individual business person or the individual business.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think one of the reasons people are resistant to sales, especially when they're out on their own doing their own thing, is this fear of rejection. And how will I handle it if someone says no? Will I be able to bounce back? Am I doing it wrong, or do I just need to speak to more people? Like, not necessarily getting that feedback as to why it's not working out the way you want it to, and having that on your shoulders, in the sense that you do need to keep making a living, and if you can't put yourself out there, you're not going to see the work coming in. So maybe we'll talk about some of our personal experiences with this, and then sort of segue into our takeaways and what we would advise other people. Does anything come to mind for you, like when that was particularly difficult, maybe in the beginning stages?
Yeah. I would say that at the end of the day, when you can show up authentically to the conversations that you're having with potential clients, you could get to show the best version of yourself, and they get to really, so then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it was just a misalignment. And to not see rejection as rejection and instead see it as redirection, an opportunity for you to maybe have dodged a bullet because they might have been like a client from hell. And, the universe is just like, you don't need this. This is not going to happen for you,
Mm-hmm.
or a redirection and an opportunity to really look at your offer and say, is there something more I should be offering? Is this too much, right? A lot of people think you have to throw the whole kitchen sink at someone in order to justify your price. And so often that's not the case. It's more about, making sure that what you're giving them is exactly what they've asked for, right?
Yeah.
It's great if you added mashed potatoes to my chicken, but all I wanted was green beans and now I'm unhappy. So it's like a two-parter, right? If if you're looking back at your sales conversations and you end up with the same kind of response, like, are people giving you resistance around price? Are people giving you resistance around the length of your program or how you do things? Then it might be that either you need to refine your target market, so maybe what you're offering and who you're offering it to, again, isn't in alignment, right? When things don't click, it's a misalignment. So you have to figure out, okay, where is the misalignment? So It might be that your offer isn't fit with the audience, or if you know that the audience is who you're like, these are my people, then looking at refining what it is that you're offering to your audience, because maybe what you think they need isn't exactly what they need, if that makes sense. And that really boils down to making sure that you actually know your audience. So oftentimes people are like, oh, I focus on doctors. And it's like, okay, well, let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go a little bit deeper, right? It's almost like going to the doctor and you say you have a stomach ache. It's like, okay, it could be your diet, or it could be your spleen, or it could be cancer. Like, there's so many things in between. And if the doctor isn't digging like deeper and deeper and deeper to really diagnose, then they don't actually know you, and they can't actually give you the right diagnosis, right? So check your audience or check your offer, and making sure that those align really well. And sometimes that's where, inviting someone into your business and asking for a second opinion is what you really need, right? I can talk to someone, and honestly, within probably 15 minutes, I can diagnose exactly what the problem is. But that's because I have sales experience. If you don't have sales experience, it's really hard to do that, right? It's not going to take you 15 minutes, and it's probably not, your best friend's probably going to be useless too if they don't have sales experience too. Great person, not to help you diagnose your sales problem, right? But I think it's, as an industry, sales people and sales coaches, it's just undoing a whole bunch of trauma and really bad advice that's out there. And so I completely understand why people have their reservations around sales and maybe reaching out to a salesperson, but that's where the consultation call comes in. And I don't care how many millions of dollars a sales coach, has sold. If you get on that call and in the first 10 minutes, you're like, something in your stomach just isn't settled, like, you're not supposed to feel that way. And that's just not the right person for you. They might be for someone else, but they're not for you. So just being really careful where you take your sales advice from too, if you decide to go down the route of having someone help you diagnose what's really going on. But more than that, it's great if the doctor tells you that, hey, you need to work on your diet, but then you actually need the prescription and a plan of action. So make sure that you're not just getting diagnosed, but figure out a plan of how you can actually solve for the problem, and make sure that works for you too.
I like the idea of putting yourself in their shoes and thinking about situations where someone has tried to sell something to you, and asking yourself what was running through your mind at that time, and how are you feeling? If you said no to someone, was that a rejection, or was that just that this isn't a good fit, or this isn't what I need right now? And I think a lot of times you don't know if you need it until you have that conversation. And that is the whole point of those conversations, is to assess fit. And so, for a freelance medical writer who is meeting with a prospective client for the first time, there is a sales process there. They need to sell their backstory or their expertise or their ability to carry out whatever it is that that client needs. But there's also this element of, like you said, the tactical side. So are you listening to what they actually say they want? Are you capturing all the relevant information and putting that into your proposal? Are the timelines right? Are you pulling in those keywords from that conversation? Do they feel like you understand what they need? And are you within their budget? Are you going to be able to work with them in the way that they want you to? Can you show up to all the meetings that you're going to need to have? There's a lot of different things to consider in terms of the approach that you're taking. But I think on the emotional side, it's really being able to step back and reflect on, what can I learn from this? Was there something I could have done better? Or was it just a case of, actually, there was a writer that had more experience than me, and it makes sense that they went with that person? Or actually, I do charge more than other writers, so it makes sense that they might go with someone who doesn't charge as much. But not having that self-criticism about it, just being aware that, oh, that may have played a part in it. Maybe I'll change that. Maybe I won't. But I think, going back to what you said earlier, it's the authenticity of how you show up and finding that way that works for you that matters. Because if you're resisting every step of the way, people are going to pick up on that, and they're not going to trust that, it's a good idea to work with you.